This is FSN.
Thanks very much, Ollie Barrett. Thank you. It's Monday the 25th of February 2019. My name is Richie Allen. It's great to be back. How you doing? Hope you're well. It's a glorious day across the UK today. South Manchester basking in sunshine. What's going on?
Welcome back to the most listened to independent radio show in Europe. It's your Richie Allen Show. It's the Richie Allen Show. Broadcasting live on richieallen.co.uk and multiple platforms around the world. And now, here's your host, Richie Allen.
Yes, it's great to be back. How you doing? Thanks for putting up with me. Thanks for the kind words and all of that, which I don't deserve. I'm back. I'm in a lot better health than I was in recent weeks, and I'm delighted to be back. Bored, witless I've been in the last few weeks. It is the Richie Allen Show. You can contact me right now on Twitter. It's at Richie Allen Show on Twitter. You know that by now. There's something you'd like to tell me today about one of the stories I'll be covering, just do so through Twitter. I'm so glad to be with you. It's your Richie Allen Show, live on Fab Radio 2 in Manchester, triggerwarning.tv, my own website, TuneIn Radio, and many other places as well. And it is Monday. It is gorgeous. It is glorious out there. It's amazingly beautiful today. It has been over the last few days, as you'll know. And they're talking about records being broken in February. I'm sure there'll be one or two who'll put that down to climate change, global warming. Although they don't say global warming anymore, do they? It's got nothing to do with climate change, but it's nice and pleasant anyway. Like a spring day today. Maybe we've seen off this winter, which wasn't too bad apart from the snow we had. Well, I was properly sick with pneumonia. And it's not the first time in my life I had it. I had it when I was 15. And it saw me in Ardkeen Hospital, Waterford Regional Hospital, when I was 15 for about 7 weeks. Nearly a whole summer. And the first 8 to 10 days was pretty terrible, to be honest. I don't know if you've ever had it or experienced it, but it's so bad in the early stages that you'd willingly expire. You'd be happy to close your eyes and not wake up. It is that bad. You know, you cry at the thought of coughing because of the pains in your back. It's like getting stabbed. It's horrendous anyway. A wretched experience, and, you know, the best part of 2.5 weeks before I was up and about and, you know, at least sitting up and watching a bit of telly and that. But I'm over it now. The unbelievable future Mrs. Allen, at the same time, had a very, very heavy flu and couldn't breathe either. It was a nightmare for her, feeling the way she was feeling and having to deal with me as well. But look, it's over and done with now. I've had a rough time of it in the last 6-7 months with a couple of things, but they're not related. I'm in great health. I'm fit. I'm strong. I've never smoked in my life. I'm careful about my fitness. I'm going to be fine. And I'm glad to be back. And I'm nobody important. I'm nobody at all, full stop. But to see the nice things that people were sending through the website and nice messages and stuff like that did make me very emotional, it has to be said. And if I think about it now, I might get a bit emotional. I don't want to do that. So thanks for caring and for listening and for missing the show. I missed it just as much as you did, believe me. I was very amused now, must be said, sick as I was. But as I was getting a bit better, I was very amused sitting up in bed watching the coverage of the jihadi bride story. Shamima Begum. Brilliant stuff. And as I was watching bits of that, I was thinking about you, to be honest. I thought, well, anybody who's ever read my articles or listened to my boring monologues about how the news has replaced soap operas, afternoon, daytime soap operas in people's houses. Haven't I droned on about that for years? Please, Richie, you're not going to drone on about it now, are you? No, I'm not. But if you've read that stuff that I've done, and if you've listened to any of those monologues, you'll know I thought you would have been laughing watching the hysterical coverage about this kid who was 15 who ran off with ISIS but now wants to come back. Right? Pure theatre, and the masses, like the unquestioning rabble they are, fell for it hook, line and sinker. I think there was over a week where every single radio show, every single talk and phone-in show were dealing with it. People screaming about Shamima. What a load of bollocks. And it's diversionary stuff, this. This is why they've replaced the daytime soap operas, the 24-hour news channels, so that they can serve up this sort of crap. The story is very real to the girl, the plonker who ran off to join ISIS, and everybody else. And of course there are people concerned about some of these people coming back home and being a danger, and I'm well aware of that. But the treatment of this story, Jesus, mad, huh? Lots going on, of course. You might have noticed that the show has not for the first time, made the national press. Last week, the Sunday newspapers and various Jewish publications, you might have seen, ran a story about Alex Scott Samuel, who's been on this programme with me, of course, several times. Alex is a one-time lecturer at Liverpool University in public health, right? And he was, until recently, the chair of the Liverpool Wavertree Parliamentary Party. Until recently. Okay, Alex Scott Samuel. And that seat in Liverpool Wavertree is held by Luciana Berger, who won that seat as a Labour politician. But you'll know that very recently Berger, along with 8 or 9 other Labour MPs, Chuka Mana, and a few Tories, left their party. So she's without a home, Luciana Berger, but she's holding on to her seat. Anyway, look, she's Jewish, as you know, as is Alex Scott Samuel, importantly. And Alex Scott Samuel is a member of Jewish Voice for Labour, long-time guest on this programme, and he tabled a couple of no-confidence motions in Berger because of her attacks on Jeremy Corbyn. The Jewish Voice for Labour, by the way, just in case you don't know, supports Jeremy Corbyn. They're very much behind Corbyn, and they reject this anti-Semitism allegation, the allegation that Corbyn himself is anti-Semitic, or that Corbyn himself has got, some sort of underlying problem with Jews. There are a lot of Jewish people who don't buy into that, the Jewish Voice for Labour. So Alex Scott Samuel tabled no confidence motions in Berger because she was basically going after Corbyn. So the press has gone after Scott Samuel, and they've dug up an interview that I did with him back in 2017. Now, funnily enough, he was only on the programme as recently as about 5 weeks ago. You might remember. We talked about, what did we talk about then? The NHS, obviously, was it? Can't remember, but he was on anyway. But they've dug up this interview that he did with me back in 2017. They've dug it up. And in that interview, the subject of the Rothschild dynasty came up. And neoliberalism, colonial wars, all of that. The Rothschilds' mucky paws and fingerprints all over this sort of thing. And Alex was happy enough to talk about it. It was fairly harmless stuff. But the newspapers have hinted, of course, they've not been stupid enough to print it outright, but they've hinted that because I've interviewed David Duke, Alison Shablow, Gilad Atzmon, David Icke and others, they've hinted that this particular programme, your programme, is a safe space of sorts for those who hate Jews, which is bollocks, of course, of the monumental kind. Those interviews with David Duke and Gilad Atzmon and others, Alison Shablow, stand up to scrutiny. I repeatedly challenged them and argued with them and gave them shit and interrupted them. And Gilad Atzmon has gone on the record as saying that the very first time he was interviewed by me, he said, and I quote, "I thought Richie Allen was a captain in the Israeli Defence Force." He said it was brilliant that Richie was in agreement with much of what I was saying, but because there was no other side, Richie hammered me, which I did, and I hammered David Duke. There's very little I agree with, by the way, in terms of David Duke. So why am I telling you this? So this is a kind of a McCarthyism thing. McCarthyism is the best analogy. Look up Senator Joe McCarthy if you don't know what I'm talking about. That's the best analogy. It's anti-journalism. Forget about free speech for a minute. This is anti-journalism. It's anti, in my opinion anyway, everything that journalism is supposed to stand for. And it's happened in a very quick space of time, this no platforming thing. See, what the newspapers were saying, all of them, was that going on the Richie Allen show was indicative of Alex Scott Samuel's kind of anti-Semitic points of view, even though he's Jewish. I know the Jews are not Semites, I know. Because he was on the Richie Allen show. Guilt by association, because Allen has interviewed Holocaust deniers in the past. Now, when I tell you, dear listeners, that things were different 10 years ago, that's not bullshit. They were so different 10 years ago. Now, 10 years ago, I held the same opinion of Israel and Zionism as I do now. There was nothing different 10 years ago in what I was saying as opposed to what I say today. I was ruthless in my condemnation of the apartheid and racist, illegitimate state of Israel. Right? They don't like that, you see, Zionists. When you say illegitimate, it isn't legitimate. But anyway, they don't like it, right? But it's what I believe, and I'll always say what it is I believe. But even then, I had no problem getting hardcore Zionists like David Rubin to come on with me from Jerusalem and argue with me for a half an hour regularly. It was great radio, and it was important. Rubin was like, I know your positions. You're totally one-sided, Alan. You only see one side of it. You're pro-Palestinian. You're completely biased. But I'll come on your show anyway because, fair enough, you'll give me a hearing. That's the way it used to be. Great radio. I interviewed Abraham Foxman. Did you ever hear of him? Anti-Defamation League in New York. He was on my programme in Spain several times. And I argued with him at the time that the Anti-Defamation League was nothing but a bunch of witch-finder generals, and that they were accusing people of hating Jews because of those people's opinions on Israel. It was good radio. Foxman was up for it. No problem. I'll come on and I'll argue with you. Fair enough. Grudging respect I have for such people, even though